Welcome to Quiet Minds, Rich Lives. I'm your host, Michael. I'm a financial coach with lived experience on mental health challenges, especially when it's intersecting with finances and wealth. I help my clients start building the future they want with actions taken today. I strongly believe these two things create more wealth, worth, and wellness from within themselves. If you find yourself stuck in a shame spiral, feeling judged by others and even yourself, even after all the financial work, then this podcast is for you. Each week, we're going to talk about various subjects regarding mental health and finances because I strongly believe they play off each other and shouldn't be treated separately. When you get your finances in order, I strongly believe it eliminates stress that can cause you to spiral into behaviors that are mentally unhealthy for yourself and possibly loved ones around you. So let's dive in. Good debt versus bad debt. You've probably heard this before. People saying things like, oh, student loans are a good debt, a mortgage is a good debt. Credit cards, well, bad debt. But here's the truth, it's not that clean because debt isn't good or bad by default. It's contextual, it's behavioral, and most importantly, it's emotional. So today, I want to break this down in a way that actually helps you make decisions, not just repeat labels. We're going to talk about what good debt and bad debt really means, main types of debt and how they function, the psychological traps tied to debt, and then the last thing is how to think about debt strategically in your own life. Let's start with the definitions, but we're going to go deeper than typical advice. What do people mean by good debt? Traditionally, good debt is defined as debt that helps you build wealth or increase your future's income. That usually includes mortgages, student loans, business loans, sometimes investment related debt. The idea is simple, you're borrowing money now to create a better financial position later. For example, a mortgage allows you to build equity in a home. A student loan might increase your earning potential, and a business loan can generate income. According to the Federal Reserve, households in the U.S. hold trillions in mortgage debt, and is often considered the healthiest form because it's tied to an appreciating asset. But here's where things start to crack a little. Just because something can increase your wealth doesn't mean it will. A degree doesn't guarantee a high paying job. A house doesn't always appreciate quickly or at all in the short term. And a business loan can fund something that fails. So already we see that good debt is inherently good. It's only good if the outcome aligns with the intentions. So, what do people mean by bad debt? On the flip side, bad debt is usually defined as debt used for consumption, things that don't generate income or grow in value. This includes credit card debt, payday loans, high interest personal loans, auto loans in many cases. And then these are often tied to depreciating assets or no asset at all. So, for example, the average credit card interest rate in the US has hovered around 20% in recent years. Payday loans can carry effective annual percentage rates of 300% or more. That's not just expensive, that's financially suffocating. But again, it's not always that simple because sometimes bad debt is actually survival debt, such as medical bills, emergency expenses, covering rent during a tough time. So labeling it as bad debt can actually create shame without addressing the real issue. And that's where I want to slow this down for a second. The emotional weight of debt. Debt isn't just numbers on a spreadsheet. It's tied to stress, anxiety, shame, and avoidance behaviors. Research from the American Psychological Association consistently shows that money is one of the top sources of stress for Americans, and debt plays a major role in that. And here's what I see in coaching, people don't struggle just because they have debt, they struggle because of how they feel about their debt. They avoid looking at accounts, they delay making decisions, they tell themselves stories like, I messed everything up and I'll never get out of this. So before we even go deeper into strategy, we need to acknowledge this. If your relationship with debt is rooted in shame, it's going to be really hard to use it effectively, even if it's technically good debt. Instead of labeling debt as good or bad, I want to offer you a different framework. Think of debt in three categories: productive debt, neutral debt, and destructive debt. Let's break these down. So, one, productive debt. This is debt that has a high probability of improving your financial future. Some examples would be a reasonably high price degree with strong earning potential, a mortgage you can comfortably afford, a business loan with a clear, realistic plan for return. Some key characteristics of it: it aligns with a long term goal. The cost of borrowing is reasonable, and there's a strong likelihood of return, of financial or life quality. But here's the key word: probability. It's not guaranteed. Even productive debt requires planning, risk awareness, and flexibility. Number two would be neutral debt. This is where things get interesting. Neutral debt doesn't necessarily grow your wealth, but it may support your life. Some examples: a car loan so you can commute to work, 0% financing for a necessary purchase, and medical debt. This kind of debt is often unavoidable. Instead of judging it, the question becomes, is it manageable? Because manageable debt doesn't usually create long term damage, but undamaged neutral debt can quickly become destructive. That brings me to number three: destructive debt. This is the type of debt that actively works against you. Some examples would be high interest credit card debt that keeps growing, payday loans, and repeated borrowing to cover lifestyle gaps. High interest rates, no long term benefit, often tied to habits or emotional spending, and creates a cycle that's hard to escape. This is where strategy matters most, because destructive debt isn't just about math, it's about behavior patterns. So now let's make this practical. Before taking on debt or even evaluating current debt, ask yourself these four questions. One, what is this debt helping me achieve? Is there a clear outcome tied to it? Number two, what is the true cost? Not just the monthly payment, but the total interest over time. Number three, how certain is the return? Is this a high probability outcome or a hopeful guess? And then the last one, how will this affect my mental health? Will this create peace or pressure? The last question is one people ignore the most, but it's huge because I've seen people take on good debt that completely wrecks their mental well being. That's the point of building wealth. If your day to day life feels overwhelming, because I've seen people take on good debt that completely wrecks their mental well being. Let's talk about how to actually use debt strategically. Here are a few principles I want you to keep in mind. First, cash flow matters more than labels. You can have a good debt that still puts you in tight monthly positions. That pressure builds over time. Second, interest rates are not just numbers, they're leverage. A 3% mortgage is very different from a 22% credit card. Understanding that difference changes how aggressively you pay things down. Third, optionality is powerful. The more debt you have, the fewer choices you have. Less flexibility in your career, less ability to take risks, less room for error. Then, fourth, behavior beats math. You can have the perfect repayment strategy on paper, but if it doesn't match your habits, your energy, or your emotional bandwidth, it won't stick. According to research in behavioral finance, people are more successful when repayment strategies feel achievable and motivating, not just optional. Let me give you a simple example to tie this together. Two people take on a student loan. Person A studies a field with strong job demand, keeps debt relatively low, has a clear plan post graduation. Person B accumulates high debt, no clear career path, relies on future income that isn't guaranteed. Same type of debt, very different outcomes. So again, debt itself isn't the full story. Context is everything. If you're already in debt, you listen to this and thinking, okay, but I'm already in it. Here's what I want you to focus on: clarity first. Avoidance makes everything worse. List out what you owe, interest rates, minimum payments, then choose a strategy, such as the snowball method, which is paying off the smallest balance first for momentum, or the avalanche method, which is the highest interest first for efficiency. They both work. The best one is one you actually stick with. And while we're doing that, pay attention to your internal dialogue because getting out of debt isn't just financial process, it's an identity shift from I'm someone who is stuck to I'm someone who is actively changing this. That shift matters more than you think. So, is there really a difference between good debt and bad debt? Yes, but not in the way most people explain it. Debt isn't good or bad by category. It becomes helpful or harmful based on how you use it, what it costs you, and how it affects your life. Most importantly, you are not your debt. It's a tool, sometimes a heavy one, sometimes a helpful one, but always something you can learn to manage. Thank you so much for joining us today for this episode of Quiet Minds, Rich Lives. If today's conversation sparks something in you, I'd love to hear about it. Feel free to send me a message on social media. I'm at Quiet Minds FC on both Facebook and Instagram. And if you'd like to sit down and have a coaching session with me, I offer free consultations at quietmindsfc.com. If you don't want to miss any future episodes, please leave me a follow, a rating, and a review. Helps more people find us here. Until next time, make your mind quiet and your life rich. Remember, your story isn't set in stone. You have the power to change it.